Imagine a world where light isn't a given, but a dream, where 1.3 billion people live in darkness after sunset. Now, what if I told you that for too long, global finance ignored this profound injustice, seeing it as too risky, too small? This is the story of how one woman changed that, proving that bringing light to the darkest corners of the world wasn't just charity, but smart business, and how she attracted hundreds of millions of dollars to do it. For most of us, a flick of a switch instantly banishes shadows. It's so automatic, we rarely think about it. But in vast regions of the global south, for 1.3 billion souls, this simple act is a distant fantasy. Their evenings plunge into darkness the moment the sun dips below the horizon. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's a profound barrier to human development. Children can't study after sunset, trapping families in cycles of illiteracy and limited opportunity. Food spoils rapidly without refrigeration, leading to hunger and economic loss. Health suffers dramatically from the toxic fumes of kerosene lamps, which are often the only source of light, poisoning the air inside homes and causing respiratory illnesses. Beyond that, the lack of light compromises safety, making communities vulnerable and limiting activity after dark. For these people, electricity isn't a modern convenience. It's a fundamental human right, a matter of life and death, education, and dignity. Back in the early 2010s, the world was already buzzing about climate change and the urgent need for a green transition. But this conversation, for the most part, was happening in wealthy nations, focused on enormous, centralized power projects that seemed light years away from the daily struggles of a billion people. The massive problem of energy poverty, affecting such a huge portion of humanity, remained almost entirely invisible to the global financiers who held the purse strings. The cruel irony was that the technology to solve this was already here. Solar panels were becoming more and more affordable, transforming from niche gadgets into practical, powerful tools. Off-grid solutions, like compact solar home systems that could power a few lights and charge a phone, or village mini-grids that could bring power to an entire community, were emerging as game-changers. Yet, funding lagged massively behind. Traditional banks, with their eyes fixed on colossal, multi-billion-dollar power plants, simply saw this market as too small, too scattered, too complicated, and frankly, too risky. They weren't interested in thousands of tiny solar installations across remote villages. They wanted massive, predictable projects. There was this enormous chasm, a gaping hole, between urgent human need and the cold indifference of big capital. And it was into this chasm that one remarkable woman stepped. She wasn't a conventional engineer, nor a seasoned financier from the old guard. Her name was Audrey Desiderato, a Franco-Indonesian woman whose childhood was anything but ordinary. Born of French and Indonesian heritage, she didn't just grow up in one place. She lived in 9 countries, moving from Europe to Asia and everywhere in between. This wasn't merely a geographical journey. It was a profound school of life. From a very young age, she was a first-hand witness to the stark, almost jarring contrast between the abundance of the developed world and the daily struggle with poverty and the absence of basic necessities in developing nations. She never truly had one home country, but this constant movement etched into her a deep, personal sense of global responsibility. This unique perspective fundamentally shaped her path. She pursued a bachelor's degree in economics and political science at UCLA, but she didn't stop there. She went on to earn a dual master's, one at Sciences Po in Paris, specializing in international relations and sustainable development, and another at Columbia University in New York, where she focused on international energy management and policy. It was at Columbia that Audrey truly defined her life's mission. She envisioned a career that could simultaneously tackle the monumental challenge of climate change, drive economic development, and dramatically improve the quality of life in the global south. She was relentlessly searching for that exact intersection where the climate crisis and extreme poverty could be addressed with one comprehensive, innovative solution. She saw the world slowly but surely transitioning to green energy, but it was a transition that was completely bypassing the billion people who needed it most. Before diving deep into the energy sector, Audrey gained crucial startup experience that would later prove invaluable. She was the third employee at Good Magazine in Los Angeles, a lean, fast-paced startup. There, she wore countless hats, covering everything from writing business plans and handling accounting to managing marketing and human resources. This experience transformed her into an incredibly versatile operator, someone capable of building projects from the ground up, navigating chaos, and making things happen even with scarce resources. These were skills that would later define her leadership. She then transitioned into the clean energy field. At Endurant Energy in New York, she delved into the complex economics of cogeneration systems for commercial real estate, learning the nuts and bolts of energy finance. Following that, at E+Co, an impact investor specifically focused on energy access, she conducted extensive market research, meticulously identifying viable investment opportunities in emerging markets. By the time the idea for SunFunder began to take shape, Audrey had assembled a truly unique toolkit: hands-on startup operations, sophisticated financial modeling, and a deep, practical understanding of energy markets and policy. She wasn't just ready, she was uniquely prepared. The year was 2012. Ryan Levinson, an American working in the solar sector, had begun conceptualizing a platform to finance off-grid solar companies in Africa. He possessed a keen understanding of the immense potential of decentralized solar power, but like many, recognized the glaring critical funding gap. He shared his early raw ideas with Audrey in what was, by all accounts, a casual conversation, just two people talking shop. What happened next speaks volumes about Audrey's drive and initiative. Days later, completely out of the blue, she sent him a detailed, comprehensive business plan she had written entirely in her spare time, between her demanding full-time job and her personal life. Levinson later recalled, with genuine astonishment, "She developed a full business plan far better than anything I could have written. That's when it clicked. This is someone who takes initiative and follows through." They agreed on a 5-month trial period. Audrey would keep her stable job while helping to build SunFunder. After those 5 months, she made what many would consider a radical decision. She quit her job, officially becoming co-founder and COO of SunFunder. And then, just 2 months after that, she packed 2 suitcases and made the monumental move to Arusha, Tanzania. She knew with absolute certainty that you couldn't truly understand or solve these challenges from the comfort of a New York office. You had to be at the heart of the problem, living and breathing the reality on the ground. SunFunder launched as a crowdfunding platform. The idea was simple, yet revolutionary for its time. Private investors, often individuals from the US and Europe, could contribute relatively small amounts, typically a few hundred to a few $1,000s. SunFunder would then aggregate this capital and issue loans, typically tens of thousands of dollars, to small, local solar companies across East Africa. These weren't just any companies. They were the backbone of energy access. Producers of solar home systems, developers of village mini-grids, and installers of solar setups for small businesses and schools. The key innovation wasn't just the crowdfunding model itself, but its laser focus. Not green energy projects in affluent countries, but fundamental energy access for the poorest people on Earth. They also pioneered a critical financial tool called blended finance. This innovative approach combined private capital, often seen as profit-driven, with philanthropic grants and institutional development funds. By using grants and concessionary loans to absorb the first layer of risk, they made the overall investment much safer and more attractive for private capital. This ingenious strategy de-risked investments and opened the floodgates to capital that would never, ever have considered entering this market otherwise. From day one, Audrey lived and worked in Tanzania, establishing constant, direct contact with both the end users and the solar companies they funded. In environments where credit bureaus were non-existent and reliable financial reporting was a luxury, she built robust risk assessment processes from scratch. Critically, she assembled a local team, choosing to empower and work alongside people from the region, rather than trying to run everything remotely from a distant office. This hands-on, deeply embedded approach sharply distinguished SunFunder from other impact funds, many of which were managed from London or New York and rarely, if ever, set foot in the countries where they claimed to invest. The journey, as expected, was far from smooth. Traditional investors, steeped in conventional financial models, viewed off-grid solar as simply too risky. How could you assess dozens of small, often nascent companies spread across countries with unstable politics, volatile currencies, and unpredictable regulations? A government policy could change overnight, completely disrupting a client's business model. This was an uncharted asset class, a brand new frontier, and it demanded irrefutable proof that it could work. Over time, the initial crowdfunding model, while effective in its early stages, began to show its limits. It struggled to scale up to the massive capital volumes required, presented regulatory complexities across different jurisdictions, and proved challenging to manage the expectations of numerous small investors. SunFunder needed to evolve, and it did. It transformed into a highly specialized debt fund manager, focusing exclusively on distributed solar across Africa and other emerging regions. This strategic pivot allowed them to attract larger institutional investors and deploy capital more efficiently. By 2022, SunFunder had grown into a formidable force, managing roughly $130 million assets. More impressively, they had closed over $165 million in investments, spread across 58 different companies in Africa and Asia. Their diverse portfolio spanned critical projects like solar home systems in the remote villages of Malawi, community-transforming village mini-grids in Kenya, and commercial solar rooftops for businesses in Nigeria and Thailand. By their meticulous estimates, these projects had directly improved solar energy access for over 10 million people. As COO and Chief Commercial Officer, Audrey Desiderato was at the heart of this monumental undertaking. She was the driving force behind portfolio growth, tirelessly developing new funds and the innovative financing structures. Simultaneously, she managed the intricate web of risk and oversaw daily operations, a role that demanded an extraordinary blend of acute financial acumen and decisive operational leadership. To overcome the pervasive investor skepticism, Audrey and her team didn't just push harder, they innovated smarter. They structured sophisticated, multi-tiered funds with both junior and senior debt classes. This allowed investors to choose their level of risk exposure and providing a comfort level for those who were hesitant. They strategically co-invested with major development finance institutions and respected climate funds, effectively softening the perceived risk for private capital and bringing credibility to the market. But perhaps most importantly, they invested deeply in on-the-ground analytics. This wasn't just about crunching numbers from afar. It meant spending extensive, dedicated time in local communities, truly understanding not just the financial health of borrower companies, but also their operational resilience, their growth capacity, and the integrity of their leadership. Audrey consistently emphasized that being on the ground from day one wasn't some romantic idealism. It was an absolute, non-negotiable necessity for successfully investing in a nascent industry and driving real, lasting change. In 2022, a major turning point arrived. Mirova, the French impact investment manager and a prominent subsidiary of Natixis investment managers, acquired SunFunder. For some, an acquisition might signal the end of an independent brand, a loss of identity. But for Audrey and her entire team, it was understood as a powerful new phase, an opportunity to dramatically scale their impact. SunFunder didn't disappear, it evolved into Mirova SunFunder, becoming a vital part of a larger global platform dedicated to climate investments in developing countries. Crucially, the entire team of 38 people, representing 16 nationalities, with a remarkable 55% women and 45% Africans, was retained. The goal was clear and ambitious: to scale from hundreds of millions to over $1 billion in assets under management, notably through the Mirova Gigaton Fund, accelerating the clean energy transition on an unprecedented scale. Audrey served as co-founder and COO of Mirova SunFunder until 2023. Her journey continued to evolve as she transitioned into increasingly strategic leadership roles. She became head of Africa and emerging market strategy, and later head of the Mirova Inclusive Transition Initiative. In these new capacities, she wasn't just overseeing operations. She was building comprehensive programs designed to support high-impact companies not only in energy, but also in sustainable land use across critical regions. Her path had moved from the operational grit of founding a niche firm to becoming a strategic leader on a truly global climate finance platform. What truly defines Audrey Desiderato? First and foremost, it's an unwavering focus on impact over mere growth. For her, money was never the end goal. It was always explicitly a tool, a means to achieve profound positive change. Second, it's her readiness for radical action. She abandoned a stable, promising career, packed 2 suitcases, and moved halfway across the world to Tanzania, choosing to build where change was most urgently needed. This wasn't just courage, it was conviction put into action. Third, she embraced a systemic approach. She didn't just build products, she built entire ecosystems. This meant pioneering blended finance models, forging critical partnerships with development funds, and offering mentorship and support to the borrower companies she invested in, ensuring their long-term success. And finally, her commitment to inclusion shines brightly. Over half of SunFunder's employees were women, and nearly half were Africans. This wasn't just a progressive hiring strategy. It reflected her deep-seated conviction that Africa's energy transition must be driven by the talent, wisdom, and leadership of the people of these nations themselves. SunFunder and Audrey Desiderato didn't just build a company, they pioneered a new asset class: off-grid solar debt. They proved unequivocally that financing distributed solar for households, for villages, and for small businesses could be a viable, attractive investment, not merely an act of charity. They forged a crucial bridge between climate action and social justice. Because of their work, millions gained access to light, to refrigeration that saved food and medicine, and to phone charging that connected them to the wider world. These changes directly impacted education, health, and economic incomes, lifting entire communities. SunFunder lives on today as Mirova SunFunder, its core team, its audacious vision, and its profound mission, preserved and amplified within a major global impact investment platform that aims to lead the energy transition in developing countries. This is more than just a business story. It's the story of solar capitalism, a testament to how one woman, with 2 suitcases and an unshakable resolve in Tanzania, helped transform small solar panels on village rooftops into a recognized, investable asset class that eventually attracted the attention and capital of financial hubs like Paris and New York. It's a powerful story proving that light comes not just from the sun, but from the indomitable human will that dares to illuminate the darkest corners of the world. If you found this story inspiring, make sure to check out our next video right here.